Please rise for the presentation of the colors.
All uniformed personnel, attention! Honor guard, prepare, carry. Carry. Ready? All right. Prepare the post. Post. Rico. All uniformed personnel, present arms. Order, arms. Honor guard, right, face.
Thank you. You may be seated. Welcome, everyone. It is a testament to the character of Captain Chris Parsons to see this impressive gathering of people, including family, friends, co-workers, all those in uniform, as well as the many civic, community, and department leaders. Today, we'll be celebrating Chris's life while we all mourn his sudden passing. We'll hear reflections and stories about the person we all knew, loved, and admired. Our first speaker is the Honorable Governor Tim Walz.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here to Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here to honor Chris's life. I have the privilege and the honor of being the governor of Minnesota. But more important than that, I'm here as Chris's friend. When news of the devastating loss of Chris Parsons swept across the state, the first response was, it couldn't be possible. You ran into very few people in your life more full of life and more vibrant. Chris was a big man in stature. He was a big man in kindness. And the thing that I think everybody in this room knows, of all the years you knew Chris and all the advocating he did, I never heard him advocate for himself one single time. So for the incredible loss the state of Minnesota feels, mayor and the city of St. Paul and city council members, to St. Paul Fire Service and the fire service family across this state. The difficulty of this day, it's so difficult for me to rectify, because if you're going to talk about Chris Parsons, it's going to be funny, it's going to be big, it's going to be happy. And to rectify that with Chris Parsons not being with us anymore is almost too much to bear. Kathy and John, that saying that no parent should ever go through this could not be more true. You're feeling it here and you'll hear it today with Chris's closest personal and professional relationships. If there's a testament to the two of you, you raised a good son. You raised a good man who made an impact that you're going to hear today, and this will be just a portion of it. So the deepest sympathies on behalf of the state of Minnesota. To Chris's siblings and family, I can't imagine what a family gathering is going to be like without Chris being there. I can't now think of the things we do without Chris being there. I wish I brought to you words that would make this easier, but I don't possess them. I hope you here today find comfort in those happy times. To Kaya and Annika, he loved you dearly. He loved you so dearly, he drug you to parades on the 4th of July and drug you through fire halls in Hibbing and Chisholm and Virginia. And he did it, and there was nothing that made him prouder than to talk about the two of you. And he also did it, I think, to model what servant leaders look like. Chris would drag me into the back of fire halls and ask me, what do you see? And if I didn't notice that there wasn't a washing machine in there to clean the toxic chemicals off the things, he would remind me, this is what we need to do. These folks are on the line every day. What are we doing to make life a little better for them? For those in the fire service know Chris's advocacy changed this profession. We fought for decades. And imagine in the state of Minnesota, not one person or one family received a line of duty for being poisoned by the chemicals you work around every single day. The things that can make it unsafe for you and your families. Chris made it clear that those days are over, that there's line of duty injuries that need to be paid out and families that need to be taken care of. He was out there every single day. He's the first one who talked to me before I knew what a PFAS was. And he said, these flame retardant chemicals and things are poisoning people. and we need to do something about it. These are the folks you call on 911 to come save you, come take care of them and their families. That was Chris Parsons. He changed the way we view the fire service and emergency response in the state of Minnesota. And to the national folks who are here just telling me, he changed it nationally. He changed the conversation about what this work means. Every place we went, and I know you know this, Chris was like a magnet. If you were standing around, people were surrounded around Chris and listening to him talk. I never heard him have an unkind word about anybody. It was always about improving someone else's life. And I don't know, these things seem so unfair. They seem so random. It just seems so devastating. But I know over this last week myself, maybe trying to show a little more grace like Chris did to everyone, maybe trying to be just a little bit kinder, maybe find a little more energy to advocate something that was important, because that's the way Chris lived his life. That's the way he lived every interaction. And again, maybe someone will tell the story. I never saw him angry. I didn't ever want to see him angry. So that was probably one of the reasons. So he was a big man and he was passionate. But I think it was far more than that. I think he knew what this was about. I don't think he wasted a single minute. I think he saw every interaction. There's few people you're with that you know they were present with you. They weren't looking over the shoulder. They weren't thinking about what was coming next. They weren't worried about getting out of something. Chris was present, and he was there in front of you. And I think that lesson and that sense of service, I certainly hope it's something I can take with me. So to Chris's family, one of the duties and the honors I get as governor of Minnesota is to issue the proclamations around Chris's life. And we tell the story of what Chris did. We also, across the state of Minnesota over this past week, have lowered the flags so that when people are driving by, they might stop and ask, why are the flags lowered? I hope some of you took the time to Google if they never had the privilege of getting to know Chris Parsons personally. I ran into people who read the story once it got in the paper, and they couldn't believe such a person was real, doing all of these things and had all of the accolades that people talked to him about. So to the Parsons family, thank you for sharing an incredible man with the state of Minnesota. Thank you for sharing a son, a husband, a father, a brother, a cousin. And what I think you can know, and I don't know for each and every one of us, what they'll say when it's done. Well, I'm sure I know what they'll say about me, but that's different on this. What they'll say about Chris is this. Chris left our state a better place than he found it. He was kind, he was compassionate, and he was a good man. And I can tell you, he will be deeply missed in the state of Minnesota for a very, very long time. May God bless the family and each and every one of you.
Thank you, Governor Walz. I would now like to welcome IAFF 5th District Vice President Thomas Thornburg, who will be presenting the International Association of Firefighters Martin E. Pierce Line of Duty Death Medal to the family. Accompanying Thomas Thornburg are IAFF General President Edward Kelly, IAFF General Secretary Frank Lima, and Local 21 President Mike Smith. I now would like to introduce St. Paul Fire Chief Butch Inks.
Thank you, George. Kaya, Annika, Johanna, Johnny, Kathy, and Kevin, the rest of Chris's family and friends. On behalf of the entire St. Paul Fire family, let us begin by extending our deepest sympathy and express how sorry we are for your loss. Look around. I'm in awe of just how many people are here to pay tribute to a true hero amongst us, Captain Chris Parsons. A true statement of how many lives Chris's life impacted. In the wake of our sorrow, let's celebrate Chris's life of courage, resiliency, and unwavering dedication to service that goes way beyond responding to calls. For most of my career, Chris and I worked on different shifts. But about 10 years ago, I had the opportunity to work with Chris at the same station, where I truly had the opportunity to get to know him. Chris was incredibly compassionate, kind, welcoming, and truly cared about helping others. He led the crew of Engine 4 and helped me as a captain manage the station at Station 4. When Chris wasn't responding to calls, you would find him working diligently on drafting policy that would help all of us in the fire service. Or you would see him sitting in his room practicing his guitar. Chris's talents went way beyond doing the job as a firefighter. As a fire captain, Chris was a natural leader. His command presence, along with his respectful and inclusive approach, provided a level of service we should all aspire to attain. His leadership was marked by a combination of expertise, experience, and an innate ability to bring out the best in those around him. I honestly think Chris could have done anything he wanted to in this life. We in the fire service benefited immensely because he chose us. You see, firefighters often are described as people that run towards danger or chaos as others are running away. Chris did this each and every shift. When that shift ended, though, Chris continued that charge towards service. Chris continued his passion to help, and Chris continued his pursuit to make this job safer for every firefighter in the country. Chris was a fixture at the state capitol, and with his charismatic way, was able to develop many relationships and friends with state legislators. He was instrumental in the passage of the 2019 state legislation that banned the cancer-causing chemical PFAS in firefighting foam, as well as mattresses and other household products, making Minnesota one of the first states in the nation to institute a ban on this deadly product. Chris fought for and was involved with getting bills passed with presumptive clauses for responders with COVID-19 and PTSD. Again, putting Minnesota ahead in the nation. His work on the Hometown Heroes program ensures every Minnesota firefighter has access to education and prevention and care for the three biggest risks of our profession, and that's cancer, cardiac, and emotional trauma. His efforts in the legislative process impacts every firefighter in Minnesota and reaches across the entire nation. Sadly, Chris's passing at an early age is indicative of the health risks to firefighters he made great effort to call attention to and worked so hard to reduce. Chris, thank you for your bravery, your sacrifice, and your unwavering commitment to the safety of the residents of St. Paul, and steadfast commitment to the health and safety of responders. Rest in peace, knowing that your selfless actions have made a lasting impact, extending way beyond the state of Minnesota. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Inks, for those great words. I would now like to introduce IAFF Local 21 President and St. Paul Fire Captain Mike Smith.
To the Parsons family. Kaya, Annika, Johanna, Johnny, Kathy, Kevin, Nikki, friends, brothers and sisters. I am Mike Smith, President of St. Paul Firefighters Local 21. I am honored to be with you all today to say a few words about our union brother, my mentor, and my good friend, Fire Captain Chris Parsons. Chris was a 23-year veteran of the St. Paul Fire Department with 16 years of union leadership experience. I had the distinct honor of working by Chris's side when I was first elected president in 2009. I was green as can be, and Chris took me under his wings and showed me the ropes of City Hall and representing our membership. Chris had a talent with writing letters and getting results. He always told me not to back down when you know you have the facts to support the issues, and it's best for everyone. Chris loved the politics of it, just didn't give an endorsement to be someone's friend. Chris always said to make the elected officials earn your endorsement and don't be afraid to challenge them. I could see the success with Chris's leadership and always felt I was in good hands and not afraid of a battle, that I was in the presence of having a 6'7" teammate on your side. I was thankful every day I had the opportunity to work with them. Chris's record and accomplishments speak for themselves. His dedication, passion to represent firefighters was exemplary. He was regarded as a towering figure, both in physical stature and at the state capitol. Chris championed legislation that banned cancer-causing chemical retardants, provided life-saving financial assistance to firefighters injured at work. He worked on banning PFAS chemicals, the Hometown Heroes Act, and helped pass presumptive laws that protected first responders against the devastating effects of PTSD and COVID. In 2015, Chris was awarded the IAFF State President of the Year. 2017, he was awarded Minnesota Fire Chiefs Distinguished Service Award. 2021, he was awarded the Minnesota Firefighter Initiative Distinguished Service Award. Chris was an icon, and his legacy will last forever. I asked a few fellow firefighters and elected officials how they will remember Chris. The stories were many, including topics involving playing tennis, turning every TV on in the station to the tennis channel, ski trips with friends and family, his bent finger. I am told he has the best Snoop Dogg costume, singing Ebony and Ivory with his fellow firefighters, hitting his head on top of doors on a regular basis, slipping on ice and looking like a baby giraffe trying to walk, and Vegas trips with his friends. I selected a few stories to share with everyone. Prior to starting his career with St. Paul, a couple of firefighters were sitting out on the apron at Station 14, enjoying the evening in between calls. Chris, who they had never met, lived across the street and was outside doing yard work. He seemed like he wanted to come over and talk to them. after looking their way several times. He got the nerve to stroll over and chat. It was immediately clear Chris was larger than life. With his low voice, 6'7" tall frame, moccasins, and his hair pulled back in a ponytail. He introduced himself. They made small talk before Chris finally asked, "How do I become a St. Paul firefighter?" These firefighters told him what was needed. He responded, "Sounds good. I'll see you on the job." He walked away. And as Chris was walking away, one of the firefighters that he was chatting with jokingly says to him, "You may want to rethink the moccasins and the ponytail." Chris looked back with his big smile, said thanks for the tip, and laughed. The next time they saw Chris, he was sitting in the fire academy and what turned into an amazing St. Paul fire career. It's a message from U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar. She could not make it. "I join you in mourning the loss of a true hero, Fire Captain Chris Parsons. Chris came to Washington many times to advocate for his fellow firefighters, including on federal legislation to protect them from being exposed to toxic substances. Recently, along with other St. Paul firefighters, he led the charge for better federal benefits for the families of firefighters who died from cancer. Chris was tall in stature, that's for sure, but what you remember the most was his passion for his work. He always put others first. The people he served, his fellow firefighters, and of course his family and beloved daughters, Kaya and Annika." This is from the Sea Shift at 22s. Chris had a real good chili recipe, but was looking to spice it up. Firefighters are all about good taste in food, but sometimes gourmet ingredients or some recipes can be too over the top for firefighters. Well, needless to say, dinner came time and everybody had a healthy portion of his new gourmet chili. As they were all eating, having the typical table conversations, people started looking at one another and asked, "Are you tasting the same thing I am?" Chris's gourmet chili had chunks of pineapple, sweet potatoes. They finished dinner and thanked Chris for cooking, but never told him it was a good meal. The running joke at Station 22 is don't pineapple the chili. It's from our lobbyist, Brian Rice, who worked hand in hand with Chris up at the Capitol. "Chris Parsons was a great person. He was always active in union affairs, and when he spoke, people listened. There was no person that stood taller, stronger, or more fearlessly for working people in the state than Chris Parsons. His commitment went beyond just firefighters. When COVID was threatening all frontline workers, Chris assembled a coalition and reminded legislators who claimed they said they had our backs, asked them to really step up and show everyone that you have our backs during that difficult time. Chris did not leave anyone behind in his efforts. His dedication and resiliency was evident in 2015. Chris came back to the Capitol on the flame retardant bill after it did not pass the prior year. Chris brought all the firefighters from the state convention and one bagpiper. It got very loud in the hallways at the Capitol, and Chris helped shield the bagpiper from the Capitol security who was going to remove the bagpiper. Because of Chris's actions, the bagpipes were allowed to stay, and that year Minnesota passed the strictest flame retardant ban in the country. Chris also had a special place in the hearts of environmentalists. When every other entity was concerned about corporate backlash or lobbyists at the Capitol, Chris Parsons stood tall and didn't back down. He was a true leader. All of us will miss Chris's leaderships, his big smile, his great humor, his love for his family, and most of all, we'll miss his friendship. In Chris's memory, let us remember his compassion, sacrifice, and dedication to every firefighter in Minnesota and to the city of St. Paul. In a career cut way too short, he touched many lives and left a lasting impression on everyone he worked with. His legacy will live on forever. In closing, I leave you with this. In the fire service, we use the term never forget. Never forget means that firefighters are in mourning. Never forget means that Chris's family will always be part of our fire department family. Never forget means Chris will forever be in our hearts and our prayers. Never forget means the St. Paul Fire Captain Chris Parsons will be our brother today and always. Rest in peace, Captain Parsons. The members of Local 21 and the entire St. Paul Fire Department, every firefighter in Minnesota and the city of St. Paul will miss you. Rest easy, brother. We'll take it from here. You will never be forgotten.
Thank you, Captain Smith, for those heartfelt words. I would now like to introduce Chris's father, John Parsons. He'll be accompanied on the stage by Chris's daughters, Kaya and Annika.
The spotlight will fade, but Chris will shine on. A few days passed, our hearts filled with the blues. Bells were tolling, sad, sad news. The loss of a son, a brother, a nephew, a husband, a dad, a companion. A friend. I'm forgetting something. A servant. Firefighter to the end. Now in the hands of the Lord, tell my son I'll be along directly, Johnny P. Thank you.
Thank you for those beautiful words, John. And now I'd like to introduce Chris's daughter, Kaya Parsons.
Okay. Thank you all for coming out today to celebrate my dad's life. My name is Kaya, and I am the oldest daughter. Excuse me if there are any errors in my speech, because he was the one that would always help me proofread my reports and presentations while I was in school, and I just graduated with his help. My dad was so many things to so many people. I think between work, school, family, and whatever obligations we have, sometimes we have part places in our lives where we lose who we are inside. Although I can't read all of my dad's thoughts, I can tell you about the person he was when no one was looking. My dad was the type of guy to fall asleep on the couch with tennis playing on TV. He would always watch the Vikings play, even after swearing he was done with them for the season. He was a fantastic cook and would always order a pulled pork sandwich or a barbecue chicken pizza with a craft beer at every restaurant. He has a bust and portrait of Abraham Lincoln right behind him at his desk at home. His taste in music, which ranged from 60s psychedelic to 70s folk to 80s new wave to 90s grunge, and then on to 2000s and 2010s alternative, is something that really rubbed off on me. It seemed like half of our conversations were about discussing our favorite music or movies. Although my dad and I were very close, and we were, I often wondered what else was going on inside of his head. I bet there was so much about him, mundane or otherwise, that he never told anyone. In a way, I appreciate that. My dad was a completely unique human being with his own thoughts, feelings, hopes, dreams, regrets, and goals. So much that can never be replicated or replaced in a billion years or more. In that vein, he would want all of us to carry on being our true selves and living our best lives. To my dad, thanks for putting me on this earth, and it's been real.
Thank you so much, Kai. And now I'd like to introduce Chris's daughter, Annika Parsons.
Hi, I'm Chris's youngest daughter, and I just want to thank everyone who was able to be here today and all the stories you shared about the impact my dad has had on so many of you. As many of you know, my dad's been in the fire service for almost 23 years, longer than I've been alive. Because of that, I've been around this community my entire life. One of my earliest memories I can pinpoint was 2 days after I turned 5. It was August 1st, 2007. A date I'm sure many of you remember because the 35W bridge collapsed. My family was at a park down the street from our house for a city event celebrating my older sister's last T-ball game of the season. The New Brighton Fire Department was there showing the kids the truck, and I remember asking my mom, Nikki, where Dad was. She pointed, and I looked to see him running up the path back to our house. He got the news and just ran to make it there, ran to help. And that's the kind of guy he was, from being present at our little events, such as robotics tournaments and away lacrosse games, but also dropping everything to help when he was needed. He was the guy who lit up whenever he saw us and never let anything he saw at work prevent him from being a great dad. These past few days, people have been telling me, your dad loves you and he's proud of you. But the thing is, I know that. I've never doubted that for a second, because he told me many times he was proud of me. He told me he loved me every single day. I'll never wonder if either of those are true, because for my entire life, I've had that knowledge of his love for me and my sister. I'm thankful for these last 20 years we got to spend together and the incredible memories we've shared, from our hiking and skiing trips to Colorado and our camping trips up north to weekends at the History Museum and Dairy Queen Thursdays. Even though our time was cut short, I know you'll always be with me. I see you in the tennis ball tubes scattered around the house and the running shoes stacked by the door. I hear you when a guitar plays, and remember how your soft tunes will lull me to sleep when I was little. I can still hear your laugh and see your smile. You gave me my love of history, sports, and the outdoors, and encouraged my thirst for knowledge. You're the reason I'll be able to graduate from college and live my life to the fullest, just as you did. You won't be able to be at my graduation, but we'll save a seat for you. I also want to thank the doctors, the hospital chaplain, and the incredible nurses who made it possible for my dad to reach his final finish line. Thanks to them, he was able to give the gift of life to 2 people through organ donation. I'll be forever grateful to them for sitting with us while we cried and checking in to make sure we were eating and sleeping. They were not only extremely attentive and compassionate to my dad, but a great source of calm and comfort for my family. Lastly, I want to recognize the union and this brotherhood. It's been the worst week of my family's life, and the union has been behind us and supporting my family and I 100%. I want to recognize the fire service for these beautiful traditions to honor my dad's career and life. My dad was never one to make a big fuss, but he would be incredibly humbled to be a part of these long-held customs. The honor guard is particularly special to me because there was a period of time where we had to be separated because of a delay with the OR and the transplant team. I was so upset because I thought he was all alone. After we took care to make sure someone would always be with him. But it took me a couple days to realize that because of the honor guard watching over him, he was never alone. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything the union, his coworkers, and longtime friends, and this brotherhood has done to honor and continue my dad's legacy. Your kindness and compassion will never be forgotten. Thank you.
As you can see, Chris's legacy of eloquence is being carried on very nicely. I would now like to introduce IAFF Local 21 Secretary and St. Paul Fire Equipment Operator Kyle Thornburg and St. Paul Fire Department Captain Keith Golden, who will perform the traditional fire department ringing of the bells.
The sound of the bell is of special significance to firefighters. The toll of the bell would summon members to the fire station, and when the call was completed, the bell would ring to indicate that the company had returned home. In the St. Paul Fire Department, the alarm code 1322 signifies that Ladder Company 22 has returned home to quarters. We'll now ring out that code to welcome home Fire Captain Christopher Parsons. Welcome home, Chris.
I would now like to introduce St. Paul Assistant Fire Chief Jeremiah Melquist, who will read the firefighter prayer, another long-held tradition in the fire service.
When I am called to duty, God, whatever flames may rage, give me the strength to save some life, whatever be its age. Help me embrace a little child before it is too late, or save an older person from the horror of the fate. Enable me to be alert and hear the weakest shout, and quickly and efficiently to put the fire out. I want to feel my calling and give my best in me, to guard my every neighbor and protect their property. And if according to your will, I have to lose my life, please bless with your protecting hand my children and my wife.
Not only a fire captain and active legislatively here in Minnesota and across the world, but Chris was also a loving son, father, partner, and brother. Chris was an advocate for those who needed his voice to carry their voice to policymakers in order to improve lives. Fittingly and totally in character, Chris's final act of generosity was the donation of his life-saving organs so that others can carry on their life's work. Let us all commit today to honor Chris by passionately and selflessly continuing to work to make the world a better place. We'll end this memorial service today with the long-standing tradition of all uniformed personnel forming what's called a sea of blue. As Chris and his family make their way to the engine, which will carry Chris to his final resting place. All are welcome to view the beginning of the procession of fire apparatus leaving these premises. There will be a private gathering at the cemetery. Please remain seated until the family has exited the building. And for those of you that took the shuttle bus from the various remote parking spots, the last shuttle buses will be leaving here at this location at 5 p.m. All are welcome to stay in the meantime until that 5 p.m. time. All uniformed personnel, please be dismissed to form the sea of blue.